This is the Dog Psychology Podcast with Linn Boyke, Todd Langston, and Art Ortiz.
You know, actually, a good one too is like behavior trajectory. I just had an appointment. It was online, but you know, the guy's like, "Oh, he's regressing," and I'm like, "No, he's progressing." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Dude, he's like getting so good at this behavior now. He's doing great." You know, so like that concept of your dog's getting worse when in fact they're actually getting really good at being bad.
Yep. Practice becomes permanent. How we practice determines how we perform, and it doesn't matter if you're practicing something good or bad. You get better at it.
It's like you see life in bumper stickers, dude. Do you see them on the back of cars when you say it, or is it just like a phrasing on a black piece of paper and white lettering?
Let me tell you something. You remember them. That's all that matters, is that you remember them. Whether you remember them because, oh my God, it's a bumper sticker, but it's fucking true. And you basically said the same thing without all the extra bumper on it. And I've been saying them for years. They're like little fortune cookies or whatever you want to call them. But you remember that commercial when you were a kid? I'm just a bill sitting on Capitol Hill.
That was part of like the cartoon day. That'd be like a little 5-minute, like on cartoon day.
And that's like so rare for me to get to do when I was a kid. So I don't know, for whatever reason, like all my stuff rhymes, or it's got some pun to it. I'm Uncle Punny. Puns are fun, you know. But also when I went in the Marine Corps, they got, you know, acronyms and things like that, just so they stick in your brain. And so that's what I do is when something, and you know, when I'm doing a bunch of consultations way back in the day, I'd see eyes light up or I'd see students write things down really fast. I'm like, okay, well, that's important. So I'll say it again. And I tell people all the time, if you hear me saying it, you hear me saying it more than once, there's a reason. It has absolutely something to do with dogs and ourselves. And it's very important. Otherwise I wouldn't say it, you know? But yeah, I'm a bumper, and that's a new one, a bumper sticker. Yeah, but
make money off of it. Get it going.
Yep, I'm gonna make shirts too.
All right, Adam. What questions do we have, Adam?
You should do your post that way. Do your post as a phrase, and then like, you know, find the footage that matches the phrase.
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
it's what I am sort of doing, but I've got a bunch of them saved for like my rules. Giving them to my class first, and then I'll put them out. But yeah, I got some great videos put together with the rules, but I never thought about really doing it for my my quotes. That's a good one.
Well, you remember in the first episode, Todd did say, you know, I wanted to move like him, I wanted to talk like him, and there's a lot of little things that, of course, Todd may not say exactly what Linn says, but there's these Linnisms that may not. That's not something that Linn said, but it could be something that Linn said, and in the same way, with the same
mannerisms, everything.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I parroted it until it made sense, and then kept probably, you know, almost half of it. It based on that, because it was, you know, you feel it becomes your own. But at the same time, this stuff, I mean, just like you said it, if you repeat it enough, it's just part of the lexicon. And that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's no reason to change things that don't need to be changed.
That's right. And I used to tell students all the time, memorize every single word I say. And at some point, they will become your words in your own way. Carl Zive out in New Jersey, his website probably still has all my Linnisms on there, and I'm like, dude, that's almost so many years ago. Make them your own now, you know. But I really appreciate the respect. But yeah, memorize, internalize, become. That's the deeper part of learn, practice, master.
Thoughts become things.
Oh yeah. Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
the first sentence in my notes is the first sentence I wrote. I actually found I was cleaning out a cupboard, and the notebook, my first notebook with you, I still have it. And
I'd love to see it, man.
Oh, dude, it's crazy. It was like I was like going through it like it was like an archive. I'm like fucking flipping through it like this. And the first sentence was, forward movement in any event can only happen when the dog's energy is following the authority figure in a calm, submissive manner.
That's
Is
right.
that the golden rule?
Every,
Is that the golden rule?
well, that was the most. It was the answer to every question.
Answer to every question.
And it was the first thing that you had us write down. It was the first thing I wrote down. And as far as the Linnisms go, I mean, I have, I would take this notebook on the appointments. And so I would write down your phrasings of things, or I'd write down, it was the balance of being hack and then watching the appointments and hearing how you did it. And then when I went out and started doing my own, I kind of, I'm like, well, I guess this is how we do it. So I frame my own version kind of around that, then it becomes however it is.
I'd love to have a copy of that, or whether it's pictures or video. I'd love to. A lot of the stuff I've done is refined so much. So that was the answer to every question, which then turned into basically rule number one. And I only had rule number one for years. Always be in control. To be in control requires awareness. The first thing you want to be aware of is the dog's state of mind. The dog's state of mind must never be more intense than that of the humans. The instant you become aware that it is, A, stop whatever it is you're doing, B, deflate the intensity, C, go back to whatever it was you were doing. So it changed a little bit. Now it's going to be what is the highest level? Golden, titanium, diamond? What's the highest level? Because I am going to create, because I got my 10 rules, and then I'm going to have that, whatever that one is, which is the highest level. It's gonna be.
This is the funny difference between you and Caesar. I was on a conference call with Caesar and a big group of trainers, and he said this, and none of the trainers caught it. None of them really understood this. He goes, any uninvited excitement's not okay. To the point of what you just said, about the intensity level being higher than the human.
Yep.
Right.
Well, I've got rule number 6 is emotional arousal and excitement lead to disregard. So that's sounds like what Caesar was saying there.
How about that though? How about that? The simplicity behind understanding that, but trying to get that captured in somebody's mind. That what are they hearing out of that? Typically, they're hearing, "Oh, you don't want my dog excited," all these different things. But any uninvited excitement is not okay. And
that's
it's
why go ahead. Oh, I was saying that's why I threw in emotional arousal and excitement lead to disregard. So any unwanted, uninvited excitement is what he was saying. What?
I forget the exact quote. It was very short, and I think he said any uninvited. I think that's what it was. Any uninvited excitement is not okay.
Oh, see, that's it's great, but it's limited to that one thing. My 10 rules expand and grow to everything. So emotional arousal and excitement could be the human being emotional or excited, and it could apply with or without dogs. And so emotional arousal, excitement is very important for hunting, killing, for playing,
sheep herding.
You got to have a level of excitement. It's a fuel, an accelerant. And so if the context doesn't allow for that level of excitement, bad things happen. So I always looked at Caesar's exercise. I know his which one was it? Boundaries, limitations,
rules, boundaries, limitations.
So the way I break that down, because they're all three similar, you got to have your rules. And so the boundaries, let's say the boundary is a place board or a pillow. For me, limitations is all about the mind. So if the excitement or the emotional arousal is bigger than the place board, they're going to come off. So you have to limit the mind to fit within the boundary of whatever it is you're doing, whether it's place, whether it's play in the yard, whether it's the boundary around walking. The mind starts to escalate, then the body's going to go outside of the boundaries. So yeah, that's I just like to make.
It's entertaining how you and Caesar approach the same thing completely different.
Right. Well, everything is exactly the same while being completely different at the same time. I know. See, you got the puns and the rhymes, but it all means something. And that right there is now the first thing I have all students write down. Everything is exactly the same while being completely different at the exact same time, because everything is exactly the same. Everything has an environment. Everything has a perceiver, and everything has a situation that's being created. And it's in a house is a house is a house, right? As one example. So I've been in thousands of houses.
Come
And what's that?
on. Let's bring it back to Adam.
Okay. Yeah, well, I was just going. I
You know what?
didn't know if anybody was interested.
That was a good spot right there for me to ask the question that I wanted to know, which was, what is one of the what are the basics that you guys teach people when you first come into their house? So like, Linn has the 10 rules or commandments, whatever. And when you go into somebody's house, what's like the first thing you guys do? You guys do the assessment, right? You guys do like an assessment or whatever. But like, what is your thought process? And why don't we start with Art for this one?
That's a good idea.
Yeah. So the first thing I go into is I'm always acknowledging what the dog is at that moment when I walk in the door, right? And I call it out. That dog is sensitive by what I see. The dog is overexcited by what I see. And I verbally say it. And I talk to the owner. I'm having a conversation with the owner. I'm like, oh, their dog is sensitive. And they're like, yeah, my dog is sensitive. So that's usually the first thing that I go through is make an assessment right away, right when you go into a home, and just like, what is the dog at this moment? That's regardless of what they tell me, I just go in, make an assessment, build up a relationship with the owners, build a connection with them, and then show them how to help with the things that they're struggling with, right? And so usually it's kind of like building up a pattern. I have this thing called pattern stacking, where I'm just like developing a new pattern within the dog and mastering one little part of it, and then I make another part of a pattern, then I put them together, I stack them together, and then I add another little piece of the puzzle and I add that together. So I'm mastering little blocks, so to speak, and I just kind of put them on top of each other so they can create this one whole pattern, which is the behavior that I want to create. Or the association, I should say. For Linn would call it for the event. How do they perceive the food? How do they perceive the front door? How do they associate all these things? And so to answer it, that was a long way of saying the first thing I do is who is the dog the minute I walk in the door? That's probably the first thing that I look for.
Just call it out
in any home I go into. Yeah, just call it out.
I do more appointments at my house now. Come to me, and it's an interesting thing. So I sit on the patio and I watch them get out of the car, and I watch them walk up. So you're seeing all these little elements of how they deal with things. So they're either passive or they're, over control. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of see first, your ends of it. And by the time they get up to the stairs, you're like, okay, I got you. I can kind of see where this is at. It doesn't take long. I don't know if people realize that. It's a small little bit that we see that it's somewhat easy to extrapolate out into the whole situation. Now, yeah, you have to see it as they go through it, because like you said, it's like that's the energy of the moment. Now, what happens when this is introduced? What happens when this changes? What happens when this is introduced to the situation? But the personality, if you want to call it that, of the dog, it's pretty easy to see at first and start to lay things out. I mean, even to the point of when you pull up, you can kind of tell. If you're at the Yard of the Month Club, you're walking into a situation that's got a certain type of energy. If the yard is perfect, everything is just uber kept perfect. Or the reverse of that is you pull up and it's just like a shit, like it hasn't been mowed in 3 months. You know what I mean? It's like you can really feel the personality or the energy of what you're about to walk into outside of the dog before you ever get up to the situation.
That's different.
But also, even as things change too, by the way, because like, when we are at TCW and I teach at Fundamentals too, I used to do the part with the goats. That used to be the thing until Caesar took that over. Yeah. Not because I was doing a bad job, but just he wanted to be part of that particular thing. But no, he put me now at doing the off leash stuff, which is stuff I really like to do. So that was even better. But when I used to do that, I would intentionally, because what the exercise was, we were introducing goats and assessing dogs that were already used to being around the goats. But then what I would do is I would change, for example, like we would use some of the trainer dogs. I'll just use Bobby as an example. Not that I did this with this dog, but we would have Regina, and I would have Bobby walk in the outer perimeter of the fence so that she would change, because I wanted the students to pick up that sudden change and then look around to see what changed in the environment, so that they can make an assessment of why did the dog just change, so that they get that information, right? And it's not that that I was trying to set the dog up for failure. What I was really doing is trying to change that energy right away so they could call it out and pick it up, because you're going to go into a home and yes, the dog exists right now, but it could change when something else changes. So what in the environment changed, so we can even call out what changed in the environment so that we can make an assessment of, or what process we're going to use to help this dog out.
That's
How
great.
about you, Lynn? What's the first thing you pull up to a house or walk into a house?
Well, just everything is so instinctual for me, and plus I've done it for so many years. What I've done is I've translated my instincts into what I call a pressure matrix, and I never know what's going to hit me first, but pressure matrix is just all these little dots everywhere, and when one hits me, that whole file opens up, and now I know which way to go. But I never know what's going to hit me first, whether it's one of the rules, whether it's a pressure, whether it's something about the environment, or if a situation all of a sudden explodes because the dog is right there, or if it's the perceivers. Most of the time it's right away the perceivers, and we have to get through all that friendliness and greeting event of hi, hi, hi. And depending on the dog, they want to introduce you to the dog. I just let all that stuff kind of float on by me and latch on to something that's important for the consultation until that hospitality stuff subsides, and then the real them comes out. If the real part of the human doesn't come out right away, I'll induce it and make it come out using whatever's popped out at me.
Your description of hit you is extremely interesting, because that is, to a T, that's the feeling I get. I even explained that. I go, and I'll as it's happening, I'll even sometimes verbalize it. Like you were saying, Art, I will go, well, let me tell you what I'm feeling right now. This is the first thing that has hit me. To your point, Lynn, and I think I don't know if I got this from you or if it's just part of the personality. I will pull out somebody being bullshit right away. I want that done with right away. I don't want you to pull me through a fucking path of bullshit for an hour. I want it out of the way in 5 minutes.
Well, it depends on what kind of bullshit it is. If it's a bullshit where they're kind of a bully, they not everything revolves around them, but it
Right.
makes it negative for everybody else, I'll let that continue to grow, and I'll let it grow, and I'll wait for the opportunity to then bring that in. And what it does is it collapses everything in front of them and the family, and now we can really get to business. If I do it too early, and doing it early is good, but if I do it too early for somebody like that, they shut off right away. It has to be very impactful for them to go, wow, okay, I did not realize I was that. Wow, why haven't you told me that, honey? But they have. But everybody needles each other so much. They need to. I don't ever do consultations. I shouldn't say never, but I will. But I try not to do a consultation unless both parties are there, because the husband's never going to listen to the wife. The wife's never going to listen to the husband. They both need to see a professional there. And I don't take sides unless one side is so far off and cutting out the other person being part of the thing. I don't take sides, but I will take a side, and then right when the other side gets on my side against them, then I'm back in the middle, and hey, nobody here is in the complete right, so we're not ganging up on anybody. I just need you and you to be here, just like humans are one. All dogs, however many there are number two. When I'm there, I'm the one you paid for to get the information. Both of you are equal. If I hear you say she did or he did, I'm going to cut it right off. Well, his dog, her dog. I'm already looking for luggage and asking when are you guys getting a divorce, because you're separating the property already. Your dog. You guys live together. They're your dogs.
Hey, Lynn, but I've been with you when you've been in appointments, when you've done consultations,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't ever recall you ever teaching like pressure matrix. Like it's not something like you sit down like, oh, let me tell you about pressure
No, I
matrix.
do.
Like,
I don't say it like that, but I do talk about the elements of structure. I talk about the rules.
right.
I talk about pressure, but I don't call it pressure matrix at the thing, because what I was doing is waiting until I could start to teach it all, which is now my 90-day thing, and now I can start bringing out pressure matrix a lot more. And it's a map and a compass. When you see one thing that normally just hits or punches at me or grabs at my pant leg, these are now things I've made available for anybody to walk into any home or any situation and start looking for these things and know where you are, where you need to be, and how you're going to get there. But no, I never called it pressure matrix in consultations, mainly because I didn't want it on video yet, or you know how things have been stolen. So I kept it under wraps for a long time, the main portion. Now that's all I do is bring it all out at one time. But I was doing it. Yeah, whether I talked about the events, that's the elements of structure.
Elements of structure, yes, you talk about the rules, you throw them in there. Yes.
Yep, that's all part
like,
of the pressure
It's not
matrix.
like I understand, but it's not like you're sitting down like, okay, let me show you what social pressure is. And let me show you how.
No, I don't do it like that. Not for a.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what
not for a client. Not for a client. They just need certain things, and they need to understand. And a lot of times when I'm saying things, well, how many rules are there? What's the other rules? That's what I'm looking for. That hook. Then I help them understand. But the social pressures and all of that, I don't do that many consultations anymore. I want to start doing more, but it's all going to be wrapped around the pressure matrix from that point on. But I've always done it, just never titled a lot of stuff. Like you said, I didn't break it down. It's a good point. Good point. Art, it's coming.
Another question to do with this, like let's just say that a dog is brand new, it's a puppy. What are the things that you guys teach firsthand? Like what is the most important? Like maybe like 3 things that you would teach people about like a brand new dog doesn't have any behavioral issues, but let's start with you, Todd.
Well, to understand that you're developing patterns. You can go deep. So, you're getting this puppy that is coming from this instinctive understanding of what it had. So it had all these other little puppies around it. It had its mom directing things. So it had a clear understanding of what life meant and like what it was supposed to do, right? Mom was right there taking care of it. Like if you want to call her the first pack leader or the first understanding of love, that's her. So the first thing you want to do is understand they're going to come into chaos in your house. So you want to make a really peaceful transition from where they were to where they're going, and to start to teach them right away these little routines that instinctively you can play off of. And this is where I think certain things, if you repeat, I'm not saying that it's Caesar, but it makes sense where they come to you and follow. So you bring this little puppy, and one of the first things I want to do is set it down and just start walking. Let's go ahead and get this thing to imprint and start to connect with you in a natural way where it follows you. Now, in the same time, I'm going to start to maybe even condition in little things. If I already know its name, I can start to add little layers of things. So, it makes eye contact. I can be like, hey, whatever, Penelope, whatever the name is. I can even start basically working on something as simple as recall, because the dog's going to keep coming to you. So what I encourage owners to do is, how do you envision this dog in your life? What are the things you see this dog doing with you and your family? And let's start breaking this down and teaching these little pieces of the pattern so that, by the time your dog's a year old, it's seamless. It's very fluid. And so the first thing I want to do is teach a puppy that it's well cared for, its instincts feel safe. You create a safe environment. Nobody comes in and overwhelms it with their needs, right? The thing is, when you get a puppy, is everybody in the family is putting their needs first, their emotional needs of wanting to interact with this puppy. And so I don't understand. I don't know how you would put this, Linn, but to me, that becomes a pressure. It's a pressure of expectation. So I don't know how you put that in the matrix, if it even applies. But these people wanting something from this puppy, even at 7
social
weeks.
Pressure.
What's that?
It's a social pressure that they have of their own, and they want to share it with the puppy that
right?
won't ever say no.
So to me, right away, these are the things I want to regulate, and step back and think of what you want this puppy to be doing in your life, and start right away with showing it how to do those things, so that ultimately you're never really having to do anything in a disciplined sense other than being disciplined with what you do with the dog. And so you're working on a lot of positivity because you're proactive. And I mean, that's what basically what it comes down to, is being proactive with what you want. So you're always moving the puppy with a thoughtful process, as opposed to reacting to what the puppy's doing. Oh, I love this puppy, let's set it down. And then be like, no, 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 and chasing around, reacting to it. It can be broken down a million ways. You have to be more specific in your questions, but I guess that would be, my general, here you go.
Yeah.
That first meeting, that first imprint is so valuable and so key. I actually had a conversation with a client of ours that is just getting a puppy, getting an 8-week-old puppy tomorrow. And she asked me, like, what do I need to do? And I kind of just guided along. I'm like, the very first thing you want to do is make sure that you have an imprint on that dog of who you are and what you represent. We take it back to how the mom represents the puppies, right? It's all through scent. They have to follow the mom through scent. How do I get fed? I go to that scent, right? So the mother is a resource. So we have to be a resource. We have to be a provider. What do we provide? We provide food. So no meal goes without working, right? No meal goes wasted. We're going to actually intentionally, provide something for them as we're creating our relationship. So we're creating a relationship, and then you get fed at the end. We go on. I can tell you, I did Adam was here when we did these videos. We had a puppy that I got, and I imprinted that dog from the very beginning. I didn't even put a leash on the dog, because I was really building up the relationship with the dog to go into that follower state, right? It follows the mom everywhere. I need to be that resource of, you follow me wherever we go, whether there's a leash or not, right? And so that key, the first 2 days are so valuable, spending time with that dog and being that form of resource of, I provide you walks, I provide you affection, I provide you food, I provide you all these things, right? And so when you also talked about the unconditional, you talked about how the humans do it because it's something they're getting for them, right? It's their own emotional needs that they're meeting. And if you think about what unconditional love is, we're getting a dog because it's very conditional. It's what you give me, and it's not something that I have a dog named that we adopted. I've mentioned her several times, Gracie, and I was kind of thinking about this the other day because she was on medication. The thing is, she is happy here. She is doing so well here, but she's not a dog that really will connect with a human, and that's hard for humans to accept. And so we have her here because she's great with the dog. She's great with our kids. She's making huge strides, building her confidence, but I shouldn't say never, but right now she's not the dog that wants to cuddle with us and be near us. And that's hard to accept. Owners have a hard time accepting that, right? And so I love this dog unconditionally, whether she wants to be with me or not. As long as she's happy, I'm providing for her. So that is, what I see as what unconditional love is. And I think people have a hard time with that.
As far as your question, you said it's just a new dog. You you guys started with a puppy, but it doesn't matter if it's a puppy.
The question was a puppy.
Yeah, it's a puppy, so it's a fresh dog.
What would you do?
Yep.
Okay, so it is a puppy. All right. For me, if I get there and it's a puppy, I want the owners to understand what a structure is and what that means. And so while we are all enjoying the puppy breath, puppy fur smell, all that stuff, I want them to enjoy the novelty of the puppy. I don't want to take that away, but they need to understand the structure. And when I ask people what a structure is, most people say, well, 9 o'clock we do this and 10:30 we do that. No, that's a schedule, which is sort of a structure, but I'm not talking about that. If we want to look at your things at 9 and 10:30, those events or appointments or whatever you're doing, what is the structure there? And for me, they all have a preparatory stage, an execution stage, and a conclusion stage in it, whether you pattern stack it or whatever. You are creating it. And I tell my students now that, the statue of David came from a 1,600 pound, 12-foot tall chunk of marble. And when they asked Leonardo da Vinci how he created David, he said, I removed everything that wasn't David. And so when you are working with a structure, you are removing everything that isn't that event.
Let's take this a step further. Excuse me, Linn. Be more specific. Let's say, in my mind, one of the first things an owner needs to be able to do is get a dog from let's say a crate or a pen or inside to outside. And let's say in the absence of freedom, what does that structure mean to you?
Well, I can answer that, but that's a different question than what we were doing. Was just what I would do in a fresh puppy. But you're asking the question of when they're in the crate and they're going to go outside?
Well,
because I want to answer it because it's a good question. I just want to make sure we're staying on.
It's okay. We have permission to shift gears. So what I want is that, like, the mind. Right now, people are going to be like, okay, what does it mean to be structured? And in my mind, I'm picturing a perfect example of limiting the options or choices of a puppy so that the ability to understand how to go in this example in my mind is like, say, this is the crate you were at, and this is the yard spot we want you to go to the bathroom at. What would that mean to be structured in that event?
Perfect. So the way I look at a structure is think about an album, whoever your favorite band is, and every song begins, peaks, comes down, and then there's a space in between that song and the next song. Most people just run their day all together. And so that's playing 15 songs at the same time. It's just noise. So what you're doing in the crate, which would be a combination of a transitional event or a health and wellness event because they're sleeping in there. And so now they're going to go outside for another health and wellness or some social play. So we're greeting them first at the crate. So it's a greeting event first. Then we teach them how to greet. Then we're concluding the health and wellness event. Now we kind of go on a walking event to go to the door that then begins the preparatory stage to the outside. Every single one of these things needs to be separate in your brain for it to be separate in the dog. When you take a dog from its crate to outside, that's a walking event. All right. When you get outside, that starts another one. Now, if they see a bird or another dog, now it's a greeting event. You have to decide what event you're staying on, and then you make that priority. If somebody rings the doorbell, that's a preparatory stage to the greeting event, but my dog is in the middle of getting ready to pee or poop and it's had diarrhea, well, I'm picking the priority of my dog and I'm not going to answer the door. Same thing you can do on a walk. We're not going to greet birds. We're not going to greet bicycle dogs. We're not going to greet other dogs. We're focused on the walking event. And that's where a lot of people get their problem, is because they're focused on too many things. And I narrow the focus to what exactly you're doing. This song. And if they were in the crate bouncing on the thing ready for me, now they need to learn how the greeting event goes while we're finishing up the health and wellness events, because it's inside the crate. I know this sounds mumble jumble, but when you look at it, you'll see the separation, and the dog needs to see and feel the separation because they do one thing at a time. And if they're doing multiple things with one state of mind, that's where a lot of problem is. I want the mind to shift. And the mind needs to shift from health and wellness. Oh, they see me coming. Okay, greeting event for a puppy. I don't mind the puppy getting a little more excited. But as soon as I actually get into the execution stage of that and I touch the puppy, we're going to bring that mind down to the level that the greeting event will always be at. Then we have to end the greeting event. Puppy still wants to play. Puppy still wants to play, but we got to go outside. It's got to end in the dog's mind that the greeting event is over. And now we go into a walking or following, or even call it a transitional event, where you can go around the house. And when we get to the back door, we'll start that event. But if you keep the dog's mind one way and try to do three different things, you're not going to ultimately succeed down the line when they get reactive or overexcited or ignore you, because they're not on the same line as you. And most people are not on the right line because they don't see these things. And when you can see them separated, then it's easy peasy.
And this is your elements of structure, right?
It's my elements of structure. This is this creating predictable patterns of balance. That's what that's. So an easier way than the crate to the back door for you to see how far it spreads out, but it's easy. So I'm going to take my dog to the vet. My dog doesn't like the vet. What doesn't matter, whatever it is. I have to greet the dog to put the leash on the dog, start the walking event to the vehicle, start the travel event, and be prepared for multiple unscheduled greeting events, bicycle, squirrel, dog, whatever. And I don't have time to focus on teaching them that. So we're going to focus on the drive and get to the vet. Get out of the car, walking event, multiple greeting events with dogs in the lobby and the outside and everything. Now we start the preparatory stage, sign in, and go sit down to the health and wellness event with still multiple unscheduled greeting events that you must know what you're going to do with and how to do them. Then you're still in the preparatory stage of the health and wellness event when the vet tech sticks the thermometer up butt and does all the stuff. Then you're sitting there again waiting. Then the vet comes in. Now the execution stage begins and they do whatever they're going to do. Then you go into the tail end, the conclusion stage, as you sign out and pay. More greeting events, new dogs, walking event to the vehicle, travel event to home, walking event into the house, transitional event, whatever, and then on and on. If you see this way, your dog will stay in each one of those things because that's all you're focused on. Does this make sense? Is that a better example for how to
you're saying it almost like
the crate to the backyard?
Yeah, you're saying it almost like how dogs perceive things, like you're breaking it down moment by moment. And like just from going out of the crate to the back door, that's a lot of moments. Like you want to wait for them to be
that's right.
Somewhat calm before you even let them out. When you let them out, they need to be calm. When you go from the door to from the crate to the door, they need to be calm. So it's all these things broken down. One quick thing though,
without setting it up. Oh,
one quick thing, Linn, is can you just center yourself a little bit more on frame? I want to catch your whole face.
I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, right around there. Yep.
Well, I don't know.
Right, that's perfect.
You have to tell me these things because
and I figured I would this
try
time.
and stay in this one spot
here, and I could like talk to you guys now. So dude, that's a really good breakdown. Anybody else want to add to that?
Just real quick, I know it sounds like a lot of moving parts, but when you know what they are, then they're not a lot. It's so simple because you got one focus. Everybody's got 15 focuses. Until you can focus or do something slow, you have no business trying to multitask and do things fast. And if you got a brand new puppy and you take this time, if you get any dog, if you got a dog 6 years, you take this time, your dog, it'll be a rule number 9 for your dog, and everything will be new and different until you set the new normal. That's all it is. Setting what you want. What do you want from your dog? What do you want from your life? I've broken down emotion and picture and everything for every bit of it. So then it just becomes one thing. Boom, a little dot on the map that is opens up to an awareness opportunity point is what I call it. Anyway.
I think even if to simplify it is
simplify it.
In most cases, people do maybe 10 things with their dogs, right?
Mm-hmm.
They may do 10 things. 10, you want to call them the events, activities, they maybe do 10 things. So however you choose to break it down, if you can get people to habitualize, create routines, understand the way that everything you just said breaks down into a repeated pattern, then if you do it the right way, those events kind of govern themselves.
That's right. Predictable patterns of balance.
Like a feeding event, and then putting it on your dog, and then the basics of a walking event and how that expands out to your wordings, the social unscheduled social events or social. How did you say that?
Greetings. So
Yeah.
you were saying there might be 10 things. I think I only have 6 or 7 things that you do all the time, even if it's once a year, taking the dog to the vet. I've covered them all. They're all covered in there. The one that happens the most is the greeting event and the transitional event. The greeting event, you come home and greet the dog, then you go take a shower and you come back out 5 minutes later and your dog's like, "Hey, how you doing?" It's another greeting event. Birds, squirrels, anything that moves, anything that's perceiver and they meet it, whether they're aggressive to it or not, falls under the category of a greeting event. And if they're aggressive, we know that they don't understand how to greet. So I don't have time to greet right now. So I make a little mark to set aside time for a behavior expectation drill to create the event.
Why do you not want them to do it right then? What would be a negative of trying to accomplish something that you can't succeed with?
Well, there's multiple reasons. If I see a dog and my dog's lunging at it, those people don't want to talk to me. They don't want to say, "Okay, practice." Most people are also emotionally, disregarding. They're angry, they're frustrated, they're embarrassed, they're upset, confused. It's not the time to be teaching a dog something when you can't even control yourself. You make a note that I can't control my dog around other dogs or squirrels or whatever it is. And then instead of your next walk, you're going to do a behavior expectation drill for that time frame until you teach your dog how to handle either ignoring. It's still a greeting event when you see your neighbor pull out of the yard and you go like this. Hey, that's a full greeting event. Preparatory stage, execution stage, conclusion stage. That's how I want my dogs to react to squirrels. Oh, there's a squirrel. Okay. So it falls under the greeting event. I just simplified it. Like you said, there's only 10 things maybe you do with your dog ever, but I've filed it in. And the other one is transitional event. That's where I've got 3 dogs out here right now where I'm staying. There's a shit ton of dogs here, but there are 3 out right now. They're in a transitional event. I trust them to maintain the speed limit of what they're doing. They're not playing. They're just hanging out in the sun. It's a transitional. I'm not requiring anything from them. Now, what would happen, we said in the beginning, the instant you become aware, let's say that they start playing really loudly or one starts barking at somebody going by, the instant you become aware, A, stop whatever it is you're doing. B, deflate that intensity. C, come back to doing what you were doing. So everything is covered. I don't know how much more simple I could make it. It's just memorizing, internalizing, and seeing that every single thing is there. It's covered. You just have to let go of everything, learn it, then come back in. If you want to use other words and this and that, you can. But you got to learn the thing first. You get what I'm saying?
You know what my nickname is for Linn?
What?
Prism. You know why? Because when everyone sees just a white light, Linn breaks it down to each little color. Everyone just sees a white light, but not Linn. Linn sees all the different colors that make up that white light.
Right. But that is what you were asking. How do you simplify it? You can't get everything you do in your day or life with your dog is covered. It's a behavior expectation drill first until you've designed it and practiced it enough to then call it an event. And once that event is in, the dog has this way of being. Now, you take that event that you got your daily life set up with your dog, and then you move, and that takes you 2 months to get moving, and it's out of state, and everything is new. Everything's going to be out of whack for your dog. But with this, once you set things back into motion, even though it's a completely different environment, completely different time frame, whatever, they fall into the smooth grain right away. But everything's set, and you can use whatever. You can flower it up with. I love Caesar's language. It just doesn't work for everything for me or most people. They don't get all of that stuff. So I've created a very layman's terms dog psychology. And then you look at it and you go from there. But I'll answer. I wish people would try to punch holes in my matrix. Most people don't even understand what they laugh and they send memes like with the movie Matrix. Matrix is a set of it's a system set up by rules. Let me get to the better part. The archaic meaning of matrix is the womb, where it all begins. And I believe pressure is first before anything. You can't have a prey drive until there's something there to trigger it. You can't have everything is pressure first, then the emotions and the reactions and or the energy comes from that. So I'm always ahead of the behavior. Rule number 7: always be ahead of the behavior. Because once you know, you can't not know.
Not know.
And you can't not know. That's just what it is, and
So
it's all covered. And
I'm gonna
you can use it in any part of your life.
I'm going to skip around a little bit here and go to the first part of this process. So I was talking about getting a puppy, but how would you guys go about picking a puppy for most people? Like what's something that you can look for in a behavior or an energy of the dog? But like, what do you recommend for most people to get, and how would you pick a puppy for the first time? Let's go with Art on this one.
Pick. It's the most important thing.
What's the most important thing?
Pick it.
What's
Just kidding. I said pick
I
a
missed
color.
it.
Pick a color that you like.
Yes.
Yeah. What gender?
Yes.
Pick the.
So for me, it's knowing what lifestyle we have. That is, people will get a dog like a certain breed that is a working line. Let's say, and the families are couch potatoes. It's not going to be a good fit. And I think we have to have an honest conversation with ourselves and say, who am I? And what do I do? How active am I? Not how active am I going to be, because people are lazy.
Or like
be honest
to be.
with yourself. They say, I'm going to get a dog so I can exercise. Well, let's start with you just exercising first. Let's start there without the dog.
We'll add the dog to all the other clothes hanging exercise equipment that you have.
Yeah, hanging all the stuff on the treadmill. But it's just having an honest conversation of who am I as an individual? How active am I? And then figuring out what kind of dog fits into your lifestyle. And I believe, there's 2 ways we can go about it. If you're going to get a dog from a breeder, asking a lot of questions from the breeder. Who do they grow up around? If you have kids, does the breeder allow do the family that they live with or that they're bred with, do they have kids? Like, ask all these questions to see if the dog has been exposed to all these things as a puppy. Now, let's say you get the dog from a rescue, which I encourage people to do, and I highly believe that you can ask a lot of questions even with the rescue. Hey, who does the dog live? I mean, who does the dog live with? Let's ask the foster parent. What does he like? What does he do? What things that scare him? What things does he enjoy doing? So you ask all of these questions to see if that is a good fit for you and your home. I mean, this is a lifelong commitment. So, it's no different than selecting a partner that you're going to live with for the rest of your life. It's the same thing. You know what I mean? You have to have that compatibility. There has to be some compatibility, because then we blame the dog for the things that they do, for the things that we chose. We could have been
like. So I mean, if you were sitting in front of a litter of puppies, how would you know who's compatible with who?
So that's actually a really good question. So if I'm sitting in front of a litter of puppies and I'm able to be there for a feeding event, so to speak, right? Caesar's kind of told us where you get the mom on one side, kind of put the puppies on the other side, and see how they get fed first. You do it during the feeding time. The first dog to get there is probably usually the more forward one. Then you get the ones that are kind of after that. Could be the happy-go-lucky. And the last ones to get fed, which are usually the runts, are the more sensitive ones. And honestly, for me, like, if I'm going to pick a dog, I prefer those, not the last one to eat, but the runts. Like, when people get runts, I'm like, I kind of like these, because you can work with that sensitivity as opposed to a dog that has a more forward, mindset. I don't want to have to, I'm a little bit lazy a lot of times. Like, I want things to be a good, easy relationship, nothing that I have to work too hard for. And so, but I love doing active things. And so I want to have at least a little bit of endurance, or some activity that the dog can do, but I like more middle back. That's kind of my jam. I don't know what it is, but when people become dog trainers, they get like German Shepherds and Malinois. I don't know what it is about that. But that's just not
because
my
they
style.
saw it in a video or a TikTok, and they got to have a dog that is a demo dog, and which is exactly why I say people.
Oh, dude, I hate that.
I'm just answering what he said. I don't like it either, but people look at it and they think they got to do it. It's the same thing with any kind of training videos too. So, but yeah, you're right. I don't want demo dogs, and they're hard to manage after a long time.
Yeah, so that's my answer.
I think it would be. I would just see how the puppy interacts with the people. I would say if I give me an hour, and let's watch over this hour how this puppy interacts with the human. Does it stay away from it? Does it keep a bunch of distance? Is it all over them, like way up on their face, climbing on them like they're like a sand hill, or are they somewhere in between, right, where they're playful but what you would determine respectful, not spending too much time away, and see how people match up like that. Are they loud? What's the energy of the human, like you're saying? Not just the energy of physical intensity, but what's their energetic intensity like? Are they loud? Are they powerful? Are they forward? Are they soft? Are they loving? Are they kind? And see, because it's a fine line. The second you get one trait, you lose another. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I've been thinking about this. I think in posts now. That's the part I hate about social media. Is what's interesting when you start to see somebody that's really loving, for example, that means they typically project a lot of love. But what you find is those people don't necessarily give themselves a lot of love, right? And then you find somebody that's confident, they don't necessarily project that same thing, but oftentimes they're giving it to themselves. And it's a real fine line when you're trying to pick a dog, so as it's not overwhelmed maybe by your confidence.
Isn't that narcissism? Isn't that what that is?
Everybody's a narcissist.
There you go. See, I think narcissism is a more modern. It's been around as far as the terminology in psychology forever, but being used to describe people is relatively new, because believing in oneself in a very deep way is now seen as narcissistic. Yeah. And I think that's a crock, dude. I think deep confidence is deep confidence, and I think insecure people throw narcissistic terms around the most. You'll
gaslighting.
Oh, fuck, man. You'll never hear a confident person look at somebody else and call them narcissistic unless the attributes are so flagrant. Do you know what I mean? And it's not just a confident person. It's somebody that is unbalanced and in a completely distorted way. But I think, to your point of picking the energy match, it's, how does the puppy relate to you? And how do you relate to them? And you can see it. I think it's tangible once you learn to see it.
And what kind of energies are you drawn to more, Todd?
Similar to Art. I can't go quite too far back. I don't know if the right word would be stronger energy than Art, but it's definitely an edgier energy or a higher energy than Art's. And so if I get a dog that's too far back, they're too affected by that, and I don't have as much range. Like, I have to stay too perfect. If I lose any form of patience or my sense of self, the dog feels like they don't feel good, and I don't like that. So I definitely address that in myself, but I prefer kind of a solid middle. And maybe one side or the other, if you wanted to use the determination of what we talked about before as pack structure, but something that's a happy-go-lucky, confident energy that has very low insecure tendencies, but is got an element of sensitivity. Yeah, I think Blue kind of holds his attributes pretty good. That was the shepherd that I adopted, Art, from the TCW. The last time.
Yeah.
You knew her she was there for 6 weeks. I think she encapsulates that. She's a little sensitive, but that's what I look for.
Nice. Yeah, I'm pretty similar to you guys. I like the sensitive. Oh shit, that wasn't sensitive. But yeah, so go ahead, Rick. What do you think for some people that you?
I just marked it, Adam.
No worries. Give me 1 sec, guys. 1 second here. All right. So Lynn, tell us what is your
dog trainer over there?
I know. Gotta get Lynn out there. So, Lynn, what is your interpretation of that? Like, how would you pick a dog, or how would you assess a dog to hopefully take it home, or for a client to take home?
Well, which one, for me or for the client? But I like what everybody said so far. Okay, I like what everybody said so far. Finding out who the people are. It's very important to find out who the people are. When we get down to looking at the dogs, it's best. I mean, if we're going to a breeder, it's best to meet the dogs multiple times. The puppies, they're going to go quick if they're selling them. So you don't feel that pressure. If you feel that pressure because they're going to go quick, then you're not getting the dog for the right reason. You need to walk away. That's emotional arousal, excitement. It's going to lead to disregard. There's only one left. I better get it now. No, they're going to have more puppies, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
You know, that's what they're doing for a living. So, but if you have time, I like to look at the puppies interacting with each other on more than one occasion. If you have to do it kind of quickly, I'd like it at least a couple of different times during that day. If you only have that one day to look, where they're either waking up, whether they've just eaten, whether they've playing, you want a couple of different versions so you have a baseline to look at. Depending on the people who want the dog is going to depend on which dog I pick. I like to look at the dogs, the puppies, and see what they're doing. One's sitting over in the corner and everybody else is over here. And the ones that are over here, one is going around pushing everybody, and another one's pushing back. One isn't doing anything but allowing all that interaction, you know, grab on me, pull on me, push me down, and not getting upset or angry. That's a really good puppy right there, let me tell you. But I like the one sometimes sitting over by its side, on the side, because he's just over there maybe for a break at this time, and then he's going to come in. Maybe he comes and tells that bully what for. I might like that. That's not necessarily a front dog. It's a dog who's sitting off in the by himself. It can handle being by himself, but looks at the situation and says, hey, that's not cool, and goes over and fixes it, or just comes in and gets in the middle. I like that kind of dog. Gets in the middle and kind of breaks it up. I want to look at what they're doing. If they're over by themselves and they never interact with the other ones, or the other ones push that one away, you're going to emotionally say, wow, that poor thing, but don't get that dog, you know, don't take that dog. There's probably a reason. You know, I just really like to see how they interact with each other. And then, of course, I've already prepped the people on how to behave. You know, just because the puppy climbs on your goddamn lap does not mean he chose you, for fuck's sake. He just climbed on your lap,
Linn,
you
do
know?
you see correlation between the way they interact with each other and the way they're going to interact with us? Or do you think there's ever an element of a puppy that can be, we'll use these terms, let's say submissive with the dogs, but then dominant or controlling with the human, and vice versa?
That's why I like to go more than one time to look at the puppy, so we can see multiple things, because they're never going to always be the same every single time. But you're right, you know, but what I choose first is their instinctual side, which is how to interact with their family. Yeah. And then grow out to the people, because I give the people instruction. If the people can't follow instruction, that's going to change and alter the puppy's behavior. If they follow the instruction, then we can see whether the puppy's going to be dominant or what have you.
Two puppies from the same litter being got together?
I don't like that. Littermate syndrome is possible. And people have had dogs that are together that I've seen, and they're great. The people in Texas that I might be going to next month, they've got two dogs from the same litter, but they're not displaying any of the symptoms of littermate syndrome at all. So I wouldn't, but I'm not opposed to it, to taking two dogs in.
Dogs I've ever seen in my entire career are from the same litter. But, you know, it's common. Also, you know, some of the most intense cases have been the same. Like I'm dealing with some of this, I don't want to say like forcing it to make it work, but we're right on this kind of fence line of, well, you know, and it's that same thing. And everybody's got their opinion on it. My experience has never been one that I would suggest. I would never encourage it.
Well, if you're going to take it,
but I have seen people be very successful with it. I've seen both. I will say early in my career, I used to say like, oh, that's just a made up term. That was really early in my career, but then I started to see it all the time. And then, and I remember I was like, oh, you know, that's just, you know, if people can't handle one dog, it's because they can't they can't handle two dogs because they can't even handle one. But again, as I started going on in my career, I started to realize, man, this is actually an issue, because there's a client that I have here. They had, at one point, they had like 6 Rottweilers and 2 of them were litter mates. And they were different, but they weren't fighting each other. But they were they raised these puppies from 1 day old. This family raised these 2 littermates. The mom passed away, and they bottle fed it and did all these things. But they were very instinctual in how they approach everything. They're really good with dogs, and so they became that figure for the dogs. And the dogs they're alive to this day. But they also had really good role models that can fill in the role as a dog as well. So that was the other thing. But a lot of times when I run into people, that's all they have. Note to self, people: if you have a breeder that's trying to sell you 2 litter mates, that's a huge red flag. Do not do it.
Same thing with
yes. Back to
don't get a 6-month-old. Do not buy a 6-month-old. If you can't get a puppy at 7 weeks old, don't get the puppy. Your breeder is taking you for a ride. Please understand that any puppy past 7 or 8 weeks, unless the whole litter's staying together like 10 weeks, which is developmentally yay, great. But the second that they're like, oh no, this one's 6 months old, no, don't take it. No.
because they couldn't sell it.
Yep. And
Right.
normally one of the most unsocialized cases that I'm going to experience is because that, most breeders have this isolated environment. Now you got a 6-month-old dog that's been isolated, and people they were in the mood for a dog, and that was all that was available. I think you were saying that earlier then when I was trying to quiet the dogs. Yeah, screw that.
I forgot to say the first thing I do when I show up to a breeder to pick a puppy for the clients is, do you have the mother and father? Yeah, we have the mother and father. Where are they? Oh, okay. They're out there. They're over there. So if you can't get the mother and the father, sometimes the stud is another place and the mother's there. If the mother can't be out around you guys, if they won't show you the father, that's a problem. Okay. You're breeding in problems. So it's going to grow up that way. If they have the mother and father there and they're with the puppies, I don't care if I get a puppy from this litter. I'll come back and get a puppy the next time because they're literally doing it right for a temperament and everything. So
I was flown up. This is like one of the little cool aspects of the job at this point is I was flown up on a private plane to Pennsylvania to grab 2 puppies from the same litter, but for neighbors, right? So it wasn't 2 puppies for the same people, but they were neighbors, and they were Pennsylvania Dutch. So I'm on this property. It's like 25 acres, and the mom and the puppies come running out, and you got all this space, and there's like 10 kids all dressed in like that Dutch.
That's perfect.
Dad comes running out. The dad dog comes running out, and I just like to your point. I went, yep. It was instantaneous.
Either one you want.
And the way that all that worked, and to your point, if I wanted a dog that was that breed, that would be somebody I'd want to go back to use.
And if you get a dog,
breeders, but I mean, in the best case of a bad situation, if you want to call it that, pay attention to your breeders. Don't use shitty breeders. Use somebody that's taking care of their dogs and that is doing it the right way and taking care of all the little nuanced details, not just trying to make $3,000 a puppy.
And if you get a dog from a breeder and it's the best dog you've ever had, you don't go anywhere else for your next dog. You go back to that breeder and get another dog from them.
But still follow the same procedure because...
Of course. Yes, you're right. Of course. But yeah, those are the big thing. I'll turn around in the driveway when they say, oh, the mother's over there. Okay, have a great day. Why aren't we going to look at the puppies? No, not a chance. Because you'll fall in love with one and you'll want to take it. And then what's the point of me being here at that point? That's emotional arousal and excitement.
Cool. Yeah, this was a really good episode, guys. I think that I want to hear from the people out there. Do you like the new format? I'm enjoying the new format. Having Adam on here, it kind of breaks things up. He can ask us questions. So again, if you are following us on YouTube or Spotify or Apple, please ask us some questions. We'd love to be able to answer some questions. We'd love to give some feedback or give some answers to some of the questions, but give us some feedback. Do you like the new format? I'm really enjoying it, but it does not matter what I think.
So are you telling me that you're enjoying it, Art? Are you enjoying it?
I'm enjoying the new format.
Later, guys.
Be good.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Later.
Take care.